Hello, everyone. Welcome to this little video cast. I'm joined by EUC royalty, Mr. Gavin Connolly. Thanks for joining me, mate.
No worries, my
Give
pleasure.
us a quick 1 minute on who Gav is, and for those that don't know, I'm sure everyone does. Our 1.5 million combined followers definitely know who Nerdio are, of course. But give us a
Sure.
quick snapshot of who Nerdio are.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me here, Mike. It's great. Really excited to participate in the discussion. My name is Gavin Connolly. I am field CTO for Nerdio. I am based in Dublin, Ireland, but broadly supporting customers all across EMEA with a specific focus around the UK and Irish market. I'm coming to you live today here from Microsoft HQ, EMEA
Ah,
HQ, I should
well,
say.
no better place to be, right?
Well, no better place to be when you are Nerdio, who is a an exclusive top tier ISV partner of Microsoft, focusing on optimizing the Microsoft technology stack, particularly around end user computing and kind of modern work. So primarily focused on Azure Virtual Desktop, but also Windows 365 and now Intune as well. So it's a
Awesome.
really exciting time, and the partnership is growing and continues to be really next level in terms of the Microsoft and Nerdio collaboration. So we're really excited to see it continue to grow.
Sure. And believe celebration is in order as well, because you recently won quite a nice award, right?
We did. So we are the America's Marketplace Partner of the Year for yeah between Nerdy and Microsoft. So it's a testament to the kind of level of collaboration and the that dedication to customers and kind of bring customers along that journey to that evolution of the modern way to do desktop as a service.
Yeah, yeah, and a recognition that Nerdy is actually driving value from that perspective. Because I cannot remember the figure, but the figure is in my head was something like $250 million of associated spend in
Yes.
Azure once Nerdio is deployed, which is an incredible amount of cash, of course. I'd have a
Yeah.
little bit of that if that's okay.
Yeah, exactly that, and yeah, look, that's what it's all about. Kind of, Microsoft obviously see that benefit of having that strong kind of EUC focused partner in Nerdio to kind of help guide and bring the customer along on the journey, but also for customers, right? It's all about giving them that tool to help make sure that that spend is just right for them
Yeah,
and is optimized and curtailed and so yeah, we're in a very happy place between the two, and Microsoft understands that benefit and that value. They know that the customer has to be getting that right level of optimization in their cloud spend. They're very supportive of having a tool like Nerdio to help customers with that.
yeah, yeah. And whilst we're not exclusively talking about Nerdy, the topic of our discussion is going to be perhaps more broadly on the EUC
Sure,
space and the state of the
absolutely.
market. But we as Nerdio partners have definitely recognised the value to our clients in terms of that optimization piece when they've deployed Nerdio. We even state now it's a prerequisite of any AVD project we do.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
and 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 it's not only what it's driving in terms of cost savings in the cloud, it's also the cost savings in terms of your operational overhead, right? We
yeah,
often have to manage this stuff as partners, right? So
exactly.
do you want to look at one console where you can navigate and orchestrate and make changes, or do you want to hop through 15 and you be a PowerShell expert?
Yeah,
I know where my vote goes. I think most people associate Nerdio immediately with Azure Virtual Desktop.
sure.
You have in the last kind of year or so branched out with Intune and some application management. Just give us a quick snapshot of that direction of travel and maybe if you know the decision to move in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think as this ecosystem matures and broadens and evolves, I think we've always said that in end user computing and virtualization, the applications are key.
Mm.
And organizations have different mechanisms and different levers for managing both applications and devices. So if you can wrap that up in one single unified console, the kind of the sweet spot is there. We are completely 100% focused on the Microsoft technology stack. So as organizations modernize and move towards that modern endpoint management and modern application management, there's a sweet spot there for Nerdio to bring in what we call our unified application management to help organizations manage the applications to both their golden images, to their virtual desktops, whether that be AVD or Windows 365, and then to their Windows physical endpoints as well via Intune. So that's kind of the where we're seeing value now, and customers now. That's really starting to resonate with customers. That's the applications, but also then we bring in endpoint management as well for
Mm.
the management of the policies, conditional access, security policies, and so on, as well as kind of general management policies as well. So, we're seeing more and more customers now adopt Intune management of AVD as well. So they need a console then to manage their virtual desktops and their physical desktops, and
Mm.
Nerdio can bring that all into one single pane of glass to
Yeah, so you're
borrow
not
that
hopping
expression.
through various management consoles to effectively
Exactly.
manage the same ecosystem of solutions.
Exactly. And smaller customers really like that because that's normally the same team and they're doing a
Mm.
little bit of everything.
Mm.
So they get to kind of experience that from one console. Larger customers tend to like it as well because we do something clever where we do two things where we lock it down based on role-based access control.
Sure.
So, if they do want to offload a portion of the management of of those components to a third party, a partner, a service integrator, whatever that might be, they can put on the ORBAC to ensure that, those third parties are only seeing what they need to see and can only manage what they need to manage. So there's kind of two ends of the spectrum coming in, as well as with Intune, we've introduced change policy tracking and backup and recovery of policies, which just
Right.
doesn't exist in Intune today.
Mm.
So it's a really clever mechanism, to be able to manage that. And if you make a mistake in Intune, and I used to support mobile products a couple of years back, you push something out. You don't know what you might not know what you've changed. You have to go back manually, figure it out.
Sure.
We can just map that, track it, push it back to a previous version if something goes wrong.
Okay.
Again, it's that same idea, Mike, that we've been doing so well for AVD. We're now starting to trickle into Intune of just what are those two or three little needle movers that makes the admin's
Mm.
life easier, that makes the admin the hero, you know?
Yeah, for sure, and potentially means that got to be careful how you say this. That some of the tasks that have often been done by more senior members of staff, perhaps your more expensive engineers or your support staff, can actually now start to be passed down to perhaps more junior members of staff who can then start to add more value to the business, freeing those people up to do what they're probably being paid to do, really, which is
Yeah.
maybe develop what they're doing within that support entity as opposed to just keeping the lights on.
Yeah, we had one customer and they were a relatively large customer and they had an enterprise architect who was I would say maybe the wrong word, but wasting his time tracking, bloat essentially in their scaling mechanisms and in
Yeah,
their policy mechanisms. They're basically seeing an increase in cost because their kind of IT's help desk teams were just adding new machines and adding new endpoints as they were having issues
yeah.
instead of going and actually resolving the problem. And they had no way of tracking actually where machines being used and so on. So that's where these tools they can kind of come in and give you that insight and visibility into the entire environment,
Mm,
right size it, tell you when,
mm,
scale it down, scale it up, tell you when there's machines that aren't being used that you can delete, and so on. So for that, that's freeing up an architect's time, and the architect's like, this shouldn't be me, but it has to be because if it's
of
not me,
course.
who, right?
Being practical about it, you want your more expensive resources doing the more valuable work or being fee earners, depending on the type of business that they are. I've had the pleasure of sitting through a few of your keynotes recently.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the things that you do a really good job of, Gav, is talking more generally about the EUC space. I think there's
Sure.
Would it be fair, because you've spent a lot of your life in the EUC space,
Sure.
for those of you who don't know, Gav is also a Citrix legend as well as
Sure.
a Nerdio legend. So you've been in this space for a while. You've got a lot of love for those technologies, as we both do.
Absolutely.
But the space has seen perhaps more disruption, maybe since COVID, really,
Yeah,
than we've
absolutely.
seen in the perhaps the 10, 15 years prior. What's your take of what's been going on in the last few years in the space? Microsoft seem to be coming out of this as as winners, but
Sure.
what's your take?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you're being way too kind and way too complimentary, and I don't know how much weight my opinion has, but I'll give my 2 cents
You
anyway.
have bought me several beers in the past, so I feel obliged to be nice to you, Gav.
That is true. That is true. So let me take you through kind of how I see it. So you're right. Since kind of COVID, the whole space has changed fundamentally. We've seen a big swell at the time of COVID. I remember March 2020. I was never so busy.
Remote
Onboarding
work,
customers.
remote
Remote
work.
work was
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it happened overnight.
Mm,
Remote work was here. And that genie then is out of the box or out of the lamp, and it's not going back in, so organizations now see the benefits of that, as well as the challenges and the additional considerations that they need to have for that. And I think hybrid work is here to stay, right? And people are going to be working from offices, from their home, depending on the role. If you're like me, I'm working from planes, trains, and automobiles as well, right? So it's about having the tools and the functionality and the platforms to allow that. It's
mm,
also allowing you to have a platform that scales with your business and has the far reach of your business. I think some elements where we've seen, if you look at Gartner are predicting a huge increase in desktop as a service over 2024, 2025, all the way up to 2030. I think it's 13%, over 13% this year, over 12% next year, and so on. And that's going to rise. I think it might be an 80% increase in the next 5 years or so, which is
mm,
massive. And I
mm.
think and I think part of that comes down to the fact that, you know, with the rise of hybrid working and remote working, so comes the rise of things like contractors, contingent workers, offshore and nearshore working,
Yeah,
um, and just kind of as well as another big one is the call center and the kind of the extraction of that call center from being a place to being a function of the business. So
yes.
I think with some of those elements as well as other factors, the use cases for virtualization is broadening, or at least the value that people see from that is broadening. I don't think we talk about the scalability of having virtualization in the cloud enough, right?
Mm,
It's a really fantastic tool when you think about it. If an executive came to you tomorrow, Mike, and said, I need a platform that can have users log on in, Switzerland, in Poland, and in New York by, a month's time, you know, that's virtualization. If you were to do that where physical, what you're probably waiting months to kind of fulfill the shipment, to get the hardware to rack it and stack it, to get, you have your logistics of where they're going to sit and so on, right? It's more complex. The scalability that we can get, where we can have machines launched in 4 or 5 different countries in a couple of hours. We don't talk about that enough, and that's of huge benefit to businesses.
yeah,
And then coming back to the sustainability piece, right? It's about being able to use those machines when they're needed and power them off and saving that cost when they're not, and the eco costs as well. I bring into that, right? And when you pair that up with things like thin clients, um, cheaper sustainable laptops in terms of
mm.
the carbon footprint, right? A lot of the carbon emissions of a device is when it's
In
actually made in the
yeah,
manufacturing,
or
right?
curating the resources to build it in the first place.
Exactly that, exactly that. So we want to extend the life of those endpoints as much as possible. So
Mm.
we can give them a new lease of life by having them essentially be thin clients or dumb terminals to connect into the latest and greatest technology sitting in a sustainable Microsoft data center.
Our background prior to adopting AVD and Nerdio, 4 or 5 years ago, was with Horizon View. So we were VMware, big VMware partners, and most of the deployments we did was on-prem. There is, for a variety of reasons, I think with both Citrix and VMware, one of the drivers that we see is simply people moving away from that vendor technology. Some of that is because of the acquisitions and the disruption or lack of development or unsure, what's the right word? The market not being sure about what's happening. Uncertainty. Thank you. Of what comes next. How do you see AVD stacking up against those technologies now in terms of capability and functionality?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. Look, the Citrix, if you look, has been around for 34 years. VMware Horizon, less than that, but still a significant, still a long time, right? Decades, over a decade, yeah. And they've been the traditional vendors in this space, and the technology, for that period of time has come a long way and has been really great technology. But as Microsoft has continued to, first of all, as they brought out their offering in 2018, that's now maturing to be kind of that 5 or 6 year old product, right? And we're seeing constant innovation and constant updates from them. They're really putting a lot of R&D and investment into those technologies. And we're seeing that coming along. And to be honest, I sometimes, what I like to do sometimes is on my Mac here, I'll crack open my Azure Virtual Desktop and I'll start watching a 4K Top Gun trailer or 4K video Dublin or whatever it is, and people will go, "Oh my God, that the quality there, the stability there. Wow, I didn't realize that AVD was that far along." Or I thought the protocol wasn't good enough and I had to use a different protocol if I wanted to use that.
Right.
So there's that element out there. There's that misconception that we're still 2 or 3 years ago and the technology hasn't evolved, but the reality is now it really has. That's not to say that it can do every use case, etc. Use case will vary, but it's really moving along now. And the thing with the RDPU protocol is Microsoft don't release an updates blog whenever they make those changes. That's just all happening in the background. So that RDP protocol is constantly moving and evolving and changing. We start to see elements of it in real, like kind of tangible features, like the new watermarking. It's not new. It's been there for maybe 6 or 8 months now, but their UDP capability, RDP shortpath and so on. We start to see those tangible features, but there's definitely underlying all of that is a stability improvements, is kind of the protocol changes and improvements and evolutions that are going along with that. So that's something to kind of, if somebody took a look at AVD 2 years ago or even 18 months ago, they probably should look again because it's even moved in that time from an end user experience and covering use cases experience.
To the point where every day, whether it be on social media or on the various update feeds you get, there's something. It feels as though anyway there's something new every day that's being released into GA or public preview or private preview. So this is now available. I've always been. I've been waiting patiently for the Hibernate capability to be released because I think that's again another massive benefit for those that have got personal desktops and have perhaps got, let's face it, a shift to from maybe traditional EUC working to a virtual desktop space where you might be saying to people to optimize it, we're going to shut your machine down. Sometimes you've got to deal with the politics of a user not wanting that. Oh, no, don't touch my machine.
Yeah.
So
particularly developer use case, right, which is
developer
growing
use
extremely,
cases.
it's grown extremely popular and kind of in the last kind of couple of years again. And
Mm,
but that's a key one where they don't want to shut their machines down and they,
exactly.
and
Well, they might not be using it for 12 hours, but don't shut it down, So I
yes,
think
yeah,
things like that, it does feel like every day there's something new. Um, and and whilst I think we're seeing a bit of a wave, created by maybe some vendor disruption in the
yeah,
marketplace, but equally, I think that wave may have happened anyway,
yes,
because this isn't true of every business we speak to. And like you said earlier, not every use case is the same.
yeah,
Neither you or I are saying that AVD is the perfect use case for every business and every EUC requirement. It's not, right?
yeah,
We think that it ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people that are looking down this route.
yeah,
Um, but this more holistic drive to adopt public cloud technology has also massively helped the AVD adoption wave, right? Where regardless
yeah,
of what's been going on in the Citrix and VMware world,
yeah,
it, the fact that the license entitlement is sort of built into most people's M365 license entitlement anyway, that's a big tick in the box.
yeah,
That part of maybe a cloud first, I hate that term, but cloud first strategy to
sure,
move
yeah,
more workloads into the cloud, it gets rid of a problem because
exactly. Yeah.
that was often what was left from people.
Exactly, exactly. And it's always been a core workload of the data center, right? Is
Mm,
virtualization for organizations who have gone into that space. So it is a key consideration when people are doing things like data center migrations and data center exits, which we do still see tracking, Um, so from that perspective, yes, it is a core capability that people are looking to move to the cloud, and then from a control layer and a platform to leverage that. A lot of organizations have that really close ties with Microsoft. They already have those E3 and E5 licenses. They're
mm,
eligible to use AVD. And then what they need is something that helps them as a management tool and something that can help them with that cost and curb that. And Nerdio seems to have that name recognition and an association with AVD because it's been so helpful to so many organizations, to do that and to help them transition, as a bridge, maybe from some of those traditional vendors into kind of that new world of Microsoft and AVD and Windows 365, you
mm.
know?
So, aside from making sure that people pick up the phone and speak to you if they're doing any form of
Sure,
AVD project, right?
sure.
Or Nerdio the business.
Yeah,
Ideally through me. But
ideally.
aside from that, organizations that are um, not necessarily exclusively thinking about maybe they're on Citrix today moving to AVD, but maybe just a more general statement around preparedness for adopting something like Azure Virtual
Yes.
Desktop.
Yeah.
What would you kind of advise as kind of the things to think about? Maybe some of the pitfalls as well, right?
Yeah.
Things to consider that you maybe need to prepare for. Like user preparedness, right?
Yes, exactly
Educating
that.
users that it's a slightly different method of working. What do you say to
Yes.
those people?
So yeah, there's a couple of things here, Mike. I think the biggest challenge or to change or to kind of modernization is time and timelines, right? And a lot of that comes down to a couple of different elements. But if you're not thinking of this far enough ahead of time, what
Mm,
we're finding is a lot of customers are getting caught on the hook where they're only finding out about, that
6 weeks
they
out.
6 weeks out or
Mm,
even 3 months out, and for certain customers of a certain size, that
mm,
may be too late, right? But for your kind of medium-sized customers, you can definitely do something in that time. So it's all around kind of being proactive and kind
mm,
of that's where partners like yourself, are really um are really invaluable because you can go and have kind of those conversations and really look to kind of ensure that people aren't going into something with their eyes closed or getting any surprises around any changes that may or may not affect them. So that's a big thing, and elements of that kind of sit under that is things like application
Yeah,
readiness, right?
sure.
It's always been about the applications, and that continues to be the case. So if a customer is sitting with primarily on-premise workloads on applications that might be on older operating systems, well, that's something that they need to kind of look at and do some sort of application assessment, to see what applications need to stay, what applications can move, what
Mm,
applications need to go. It's that kind of element. Ultimately, that's the largest kind of struggle that organizations have. Plus, just in terms of, the resource, and then that's where great partners like yourselves come in to help customers accelerate that, because people like you folks have done it time and time again. You know what you're doing. You've seen that issue, you've seen that pitfall. You can kind of help guide them through it and be a guiding light through that. And it is tools like a Nerdio, again, being a little bit biased, but it's tools like Nerdio that can help to accelerate that and be
sure.
a little bit of a bridge out of, like I said before, from that kind of, from that traditional EUC platform to the new platform. Customers who kind of try to do the AVD platform natively, it's a little bit of a jump. There's a lot of kind of infrastructure as code and DevOps that you need to be
Mm,
kind of doing to kind of do the day-to-day stuff, which is very complex
mm.
and ultimately costly for the organization. Nerdio have kind of thought of that ahead of time and have kind of done that kind of coding for you under the hood in the API. So, and gives you that nice seamless GUI, that user interface for the admin teams to
It's not
administrate
quite a
through that.
point and click experience, but some of that stuff that you'd have to written from scratch or gotten from a online repository is already there in terms of
Exactly.
being able to deploy this, right?
Exactly that. Exactly that. So we make that easy and seamless for you to do. So that's ultimately the big advice I'd give is just you need to be thinking about this ahead of time. Um,
Sure.
and I always encourage organizations to regularly look at what is their strategy going forward. Where do they want to be in 12 months, 18 months, etc. Um, anyway, regardless of whether or not they're affected by changes or not, they should be looking at how do they want to modernize their platform? How can they future-proof that? As another partner said to me yesterday, it becomes very easy if the TCO of a solution gets too high, it becomes very easy to go and place an order at a laptop vendor. All right, so the virtualization solution, why did we do virtualization in the first place? Well, it sandboxed the applications and the data away from the endpoint, and
Mm.
it allowed connectivity from virtually anywhere to centralized data and systems. That's still valuable, but we need
It,
to make sure that the TCO is right.
it's extremely valuable, maybe for reasons yet that we haven't necessarily realized. So that centralization of data piece has often been associated with security, right? In terms of keeping
Yes,
the data central and not being
absolutely.
extended out to the
Yep,
endpoint. Um, I I listened to another keynote from somebody that we know, at least in the ecosystem mutually, Jay McBain, was actually at
yep,
NerdioCon this
sure.
year, where I might get the stat wrong, but it was something like 80% of the world's data sits on an endpoint. It's not centralized. And that argument was based around how far can we go with AI, right? And what's the
Sure.
next steps? And one
Yeah,
of his conclusions was, whilst AI is here, right? It's not going away, and people are investing in it, right? We use
yeah,
Copilot, for example.
exactly.
His point was until more of that data is centralized, it's
Correct.
going to be a real problem or real challenge for us to realize the all of the possibilities of AI
Yeah,
because at the
exactly. The
moment it all sits on the
possibilities.
endpoint and it's
Exactly.
isolated.
Exactly. Yeah. Until it's centralized, the value and the possibilities aren't fully realized. And no, it's a great point, Mike. I think there's two things there. The workloads and the data need to be in the place where the AI is, right? So
Mm,
essentially you need to be in the cloud. And the very importantly, the data governance needs to be there as well.
Sure.
which is a challenge, I think, for a lot of organizations as well, that when they're doing that kind of readiness for AI and for building their own co-pilots, etc. I know that
Mm.
that's now a big motion, and something that's going to be much more in the fray in kind of the coming 6-12 months.
Absolutely. And if you look at, I've said this before, and whether I'm right or I'm wrong, I don't really care. But the sort of crystal ball view that I had maybe 18 months ago was that it wouldn't surprise me if we fast forward 3-4 years, where more of us than not are consuming some form of cloud PC. Whether
Sure.
that be in the form of a SaaS-based license that Microsoft are going to offer to consumers. Maybe
Yep.
that's coming around the corner. Whether it be in some sort of Windows 365 environment, maybe it's AVD, because all of those things we've just talked about, security, centralization of data, sustainability,
Yep.
reducing the cost and extending the life of endpoints,
Yep.
lower power consumption, all of those things point towards that type of approach.
That
And
model.
if
Yeah.
and if you look at the models that other industries like media, we now stream all of our media, right? I
Yeah.
don't I don't I don't have a skybox anymore, in my house. It's all streamed
Yeah.
directly
It's
to
all
the
streamed
device
down.
via an
Yeah.
app, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Feels like
Yeah,
we're heading in that
exactly.
direction.
I think so. And to that point, you know that I'm a bit of a movie buff, right? And I have I have a quite a nice LG TV at home.
Yeah.
Um,
If you need movie advice, also speak to Gav because he's got a few. I've got a few on my list now from you that I've still not watched.
I've given you some good ones, right? And yeah. So my point is that if I go onto my LG TV, there's a section for homework, and I click on homework, and there is the AVD app and the Windows 365 app. So I
Nice.
now have in my living room, I have a little wireless Bluetooth keyboard and mouse that flip out,
Yeah.
that I can do my work on my overly large movie watching TV, right? It's to your point, it's about, as you said, it's that kind of cloud PC, it's that consumption of the operating system from
Mm,
any device, right? It's your mobile, it's your
mm.
your TV, it's your laptop, it's your tablet, right? It's centralizing that work and giving us that flexibility to work from anywhere, to be able to sit at kind of a desk, a hot desk, when we're on site in an office like this, and just log in credentials, or use some sort of
Absolutely.
Entra ID, SSO kind of, and off we go.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally makes sense. We could talk all day about this subject, and
We could indeed.
maybe we need a part two. I don't know. We'll
Awesome.
see. Yeah, maybe one last question for you, which is,
Sure.
what can you let us into any secrets? Yeah, maybe you can't, but any secrets that are coming around the corner for Nerdio that people should know about?
Yeah, great question. Right, great question. Yeah, there's some super secret stuff that I can't talk about.
Sure, sure, sure.
But
Email me that
there's,
stuff.
yeah, we can have a beer. But I think a big focus on this is we've talked about AI, is kind of ingraining AI and machine
Hmm.
learning into what we do, right? Nerdio today already is that kind of assistant that gives you that insight and visibility to help you right size the environment, to scale the environment, to give you that kind of cost reporting, etc. And I think we're going to broaden that in all sorts of ways and fashions, including using things like AI and machine learning to help us do that, and to kind of be, again, it's all about making the admin the hero, right? So making
Sure.
those IT teams, you know, easier to manage, more scalable, etc. So it's ingraining and infusing that into the technology, where it's right and where it makes sense. Not just for the sake of it, I guess, as well. It's important to say, but
Sure.
yeah, and just kind of broadening into kind of being that single dashboard and that single place to manage the Microsoft technology stack. And that might take different flavors over time. That's more speculation than anything that I know. And kind of, yeah, give him more
Sure.
insight and visibility into that as well.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no
Gav,
worries.
thanks for spending some time with us today. Really appreciate it. As ever, a fountain of knowledge on this stuff. We're not lots that we don't know, right, with the pace that this is moving, and you sort of spending time with Microsoft today and are super close to them. So thanks for that. There'll almost certainly be a part 2 to it, because as I say, there's more we can go into, but thanks a lot for your time, mate.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. Look, like all good movies, we should do a sequel. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
get it back. Thanks so much for the kind words. It's been a really great discussion, and yeah, look forward to doing it again in the near future.
Nice one. Thank you, mate.